Ryan Presley has a chance to do something that no pitcher in baseball history has ever done. And Cub fans, you better hope he does.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans. Welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now, and on the Instagrams. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Once every 14 years, I'm on something called Blue Sky at Sully Baseball. But the best way to get a hold of me, and I'm going to prove that today, is just write comments in the YouTubes. If you're listening to us via the YouTubes, we're at Locked On MLB. If you're listening to us by whatever podcast catcher you're using, or whatever device, or wherever place you hear me talking right now, head on over to the YouTube page, subscribe to us, and write your comments in there. See what I look like. Kind of pretty. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Some of you who know me, I know I do, know that I have a weird fascination with the pitcher who is on the mound when the World Series is won. That is just, it's something that has always interested me as a kid, maybe since I was around 8 years old. I used to pretend I was Tug McGraw getting the final out of the World Series for the Phillies against the Kansas City Royals. And I just loved how he held his hands up and Mike Schmidt jumped on him. And that's just something I've always been interested in. One of the pictures I have, where is he? Right back there. There's Red Oldham, who is one of my favorite figures in baseball history. Super obscure player, career minor leaguer who was banned from baseball for a while for playing in an outlaw league, and was brought in the ninth inning of Game 7 of the 1925 World Series. His only appearance in the World Series was to clinch the World Series, where he faced three future Hall of Famers and got all three of them out to clinch the World Series for the Pirates. He's up on the wall there because it's a figure that just fascinates me. Whoever's on the mound when it all ends up, Walker Buehler, Josh Sborz, whomever it is, Mike Montgomery for the Cubs, Mike Timlin with the Blue Jays. I love it when it's someone you're not expecting, or when it's a classic reliever who does manage to pull it off, like Bruce Sutter did, or like Mariano Rivera did, or like Brad Lidge did that one year. He was unbelievable, or Koji Uehara. I'm just fascinated by the people who are on the mound. It's like the ultimate fantasy if you're a relief pitcher to be that person. Ryan Presley did that a few years ago when he was a pitcher for the Houston Astros. When the Astros clinched the World Series, the one World Series we're all okay with. By the way, the World Series we're not all okay with was clinched by Charlie Morton, who was normally a starting pitcher, who was pitching very well in that seventh game in Dodger Stadium. And Hinch just said, why am I taking him out? Let's let him finish up the World Series. And Morton clinched it for the Astros. And those are the scenarios I also love. But Ryan Presley was the closer for the Astros when they won the World Series in 2022. The former Minnesota Twin. He pitched for the Twins for many years and was acquired by the Astros when they were in their defense of their World Series, the World Series we must not talk about. He pitched for them in the World Series in 2019. He was on the team in 2021, picked up a bunch of saves, and then finally in 2022, when they won it all, he pitched in all three series against the series against Seattle, the series against the Yankees, series against Philadelphia, and did not let up a run in 11 innings of high leverage pitching, and picked up 6 saves for his troubles. His good luck did not, and he pitched well in the ALCS against the Rangers a few years ago. His good luck did not continue this year against the Detroit Tigers. In his one game that he pitched, he actually got the loss and got clobbered in the clinching game where he let up the 3 runs in the 8th inning. Remember, the Astros had a 2-1 lead on the Tigers going into the 8th inning and would have forced a game 3 in that wild card series. And then in the 8th inning, they brought in Presley, and he allowed the tying run on the wild pitch, and then Andy Ibanez hit the double. And then next thing you know, the Tigers upset the Astros, and that turned out to be, sadly for him, his final appearance as a Houston Astro, at least in terms of this iteration. The Astros are doing some interesting things this offseason, and they've pulled off 2 trades with the Cubs that I think psychologically will kind of be merged into one big trade. You know, when we look at this offseason, the Cubs and the Astros have made 2 very big trades together. And we'll get to that in just a second. The Astros are not exactly in teardown mode. They're in sort of moving the chairs on the deck mode. The previous deal, Alex Bregman could come back. I don't think he's going to. I still think he's going to go to Detroit. I think that if he would have gone to the Red Sox, he would have signed with them already. I think he's probably going to sign with the Detroit Tigers. In the previous trade with Chicago involving Kyle Tucker, Isaac Paredes was brought in, and he can fill in the infield. They signed Christian Walker, who could fill in at first base. You know, Altuve was saying that if Bregman comes back, he would move to the outfield. I don't doubt that he will if that happened. I still think Bregman is going elsewhere. I think they're making some of these moves so they can remain competitive in the American League West, maybe even win the American League West, and yet still make sure there's an answer at each position. And I don't think it's a bad move, especially when you consider that there are, the Astros still have some decent relief pitchers. I mean, they brought in Eli Morgan, who had a good year last year with Cleveland, and Brian Abreu was still there, and Caleb Orth. They still have some pitchers in there, and there's still other relievers who they could probably get for not mountains and mountains of money. And this clears a little payroll off in the deal, and it really only cost them Juan Bello and money. They offset some of the money that's being sent to Chicago to clear some payroll off. And Juan Bello is a 21-year-old pitcher from from Colombia. I'm sorry. I was reading the wrong thing there. But I think this makes sense. The Astros are still going to contend. The American League West is still a winnable division, and they're still going to have a decent bullpen. Meanwhile, the Cubbies, we'll just call them the Chicago Astros right now. They brought in Kyle Tucker. They brought in Ryan Presley. So, by the way, in that final out of the 2022 World Series, Ryan Presley was pitching. It was a fly ball to right field, and Kyle Tucker caught the final out. So everyone involved in the final out of the 22 World Series is currently with the Chicago Cubs. And Ryan Presley, who got the final out of that World Series, wants to do the same thing for the Cubs. It's never happened. There's never been a pitcher who's done that for 2 different franchises in the World Series. It's happened in the League Championship Series and in other playoff rounds. For example, Rich Gossage clinched several postseasons for the New York Yankees, and he also clinched the NLCS for the San Diego Padres. Randy Myers clinched the LCS and World Series for the Reds, and he clinched the Division Series for the Baltimore Orioles. And another one, sorry, scratch my nose. The aforementioned Tug McGraw clinched the World Series for the Phillies and previously clinched the pennant for the New York Mets in 1973. There have been instances. Eckersley did it, clinched the playoff round for the Cardinals as well as the A's. Aroldis Chapman clinched the pennant for the Cubs and clinched a division series for the Yankees. There have been instances where people have, clinched different rounds for different franchises, but nobody's ever clinched the World Series for 2 different franchises. Will Smith could have. He was on the Rangers team that won the World Series in 2023, and if Bruce Bochy put him in instead of Josh Sborz, he could have done that. Mike Timlin could have if Terry Francona put him in to clinch the 04 World Series. you'll forgive him for not doing that. But Ryan Presley could do that for the Cubs if the Cubs win the World Series. And good for the Cubs because the National League Central is wide open. It really is. There is no favorite in that division. The Cubs might be, but some people thought they were the favorites last year. If you are a Central Division team, you should really big time be going for it. I'm going to get into that a little bit in segments 2 and 3. The Brewers, who have won the division the last few years, are not prohibitive favorites. The Reds, who are making some smart moves as they're bringing in Terry Francona. Terry Francona is not coming in anywhere to do a rebuild. They just signed Austin Hayes, which is a nice, smart gamble. I mean, inexpensive gamble and a chance to sort of, hey, let's just, if he does well for the Reds, then they got themselves a major league hitter for not that much. The Cubs have a lot of talent on that team. They also have a lot of money. They're wealthy owners and a big market team where money flows through that squad. They shouldn't be penny pinching. And so by bringing in Ryan Presley and bringing in Kyle Tucker and a couple other players, they're showing their fans, hey, we're tired of falling just short. We want to win this division and be a big player on this squad. And good for them. And I think this is a smart move. I'm a big believer this Ryan Presley move helps solidify their bullpen and is a smart move for the Chicago Cubs. Now, and it's not a horrible move for the Astros because, as I said, they still have some decent pitchers in their bullpen. And the shelf life of bullpen closers is astonishingly short. So the Cubs are hoping to get lightning in the bottle with Ryan Presley, get one more really good year out of him. And the Astros are hoping to mine the potential relievers to fill in the spot. So good move on both teams, smart move on both teams. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the rant that I did the other day and some of your responses to it. Let's hear from our friend at Game Time. You know what? Attending baseball playoff games, it's an unforgettable experience. And it just brings everyone together and it creates memories. Now, I went to Game 6 of the National League Championship Series this last year, and it was so much fun. I got to see the Dodgers clinch the pennant. And even though I'm not a Dodger fan by any stretch of the imagination, being in that environment, being amongst all the people loving it, well, I shared that with you. If you remember the episode I did on Christmas, I took you to the ball game. Well, let me tell you something. I got those tickets and built those memories through Game Time. Game Time is a new feature called Game Time Picks that helps make getting tickets for events even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. When I use the Game Time to get my NLCS tickets, let me tell you something. Browsing through the deals was simple. I found great values with all kinds of seats around the venue, and the super deal was easily the most impressive thing about it. Offered best value at the event, and you get to see the seat before you buy it. And this is great. All-in pricing, no surprise fees at checkout. It made the experience smooth and reliable. Plus, the on-time ticket delivery and lowest price guarantee gave us peace of mind. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB. You know how to spell LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets and the lowest prices. Do you know what they are? They're guaranteed. All right, I see there's some people here on the live chat here. Flea Market Floppy Disk says, glad Billy Wagner got in just as dominant as Rivera as far as regular season stats. And he grew up right-handed. And Pat Venditti, who threw with both, only hit 87 tops. Yeah, I'm happy Billy Wagner got in too. I've always been a big Billy Wagner fan. He would have been one of those pitchers to clinch a World Series had the Mets actually got a big hit against St. Lou in in 2006. All right, so the other day I did a whole rant about the salary cap, salary floor, the Dodgers ruining baseball, the A's ruining baseball. I was going to read your responses yesterday, but here's the deal. Your pal Sully was sick yesterday. I was pretty sick, and I didn't want to do a podcast sick. I'm not going to sell a lot of game time subscriptions with me sounding like I was a a pirate dealing with scurvy. So do you know what? I decided to hold off, and we're going to do it today. That's why you record a couple of days in advance. But I got a lot of responses to the podcast we did about salary cap, salary floor, and I'm going to do my best to respond to as many of them as I possibly can. By the way, what's this? Pin Verarity says, in the history of the major American sports, MLB, NBA, NFL, NHL, this is the first time there's been never been a repeat championship in the major league in a quarter century. Yeah, there we go. We had that. There's a lot of different teams coming in, and that was one of the points I was making there for the people complaining it's the same team winning every year. Now, I managed to get in that episode before the football games on Sunday because I wanted to make my point of the Kansas City Chiefs just in case Buffalo upset them. And for a while, it looked like Buffalo was. And I don't really follow the NFL, but I like generational moments, and I have good friends in Buffalo, and I went to Buffalo earlier this year. So I was indeed rooting for the Bills. But Bobby Espinal made a good point because I kept saying, why doesn't the NFL get the same grief? He said, everyone outside the Kansas City Chiefs fandom has been complaining about them constantly making the Super Bowl. You said before they don't really pay attention to the NFL. Yeah, and you know what? I plead guilty. I plead guilty to that because maybe people are complaining about this, that, and the other thing about the Chiefs winning every year, mainly because I'm living in a baseball bubble. I don't really see that. Kojo Goro Majima says, I said 90 wins when they got belly, but now I think the Cubs will win the division, but it won't be 90 wins. They might. I don't know. They could fall short again. I think maybe we underestimate the Milwaukee Brewers at our own risk. Okay, here's some more responses to the episode I did the other day. Carl Liza, who wrote, or Liza or Liza, not sure, sorry. I agree they need a salary floor that comes with a cap. I just want a financial living level playing field. You're right, a lot of these big contracts hurt teams down the road. Yeah, I got a lot of people bringing up you need to have the cap and the floor. I'm not 100% sure I buy that. I understand the thought process behind it. And part of the reason is because the owners don't have a cap. There's no cap on what the owners can bring in terms of revenue. There's no cap on what the owners can sell the franchise for. So you're capping the players, but you're not capping the owners. I think that we're seeing a little bit what's happening with the A's, who have to spend money to avoid a lawsuit and everything like that, because because Fisher, who is a liar and a cheat and a scammer, has been doing so many awful things, and it's just an awful disgrace what he's done to the team. I've never met the man. He may be a nice enough man, but how he's been handling the team has been a disgrace, and he's been dishonest and has been pocketing revenue sharing and clearing a profit while deliberately trying to tank the team. It's caught up with him, and now he has to start spending money on players. And now you're seeing that the team may actually have made some improvements when they become the Sacramento A's, and showing that it's kind of like a buy-in. Like if I went to the high roller table, in Vegas, let's say I go to the Bellagio, and they have those places where it's not like the bunch of people there wearing wearing a hat where they have the two beer cups and the straws going to your mouth, and you're wearing like an AC/DC t-shirt. They're playing in one table, and then you go on those other tables, it's a little darker, and everyone's in their suits and ties, and they're clearly bringing in the big bucks there. I can't sit down on that table and say, here's $5, put me in. There should be a buy-in. There should be, hey, there's a minimum. You want to play with the big boys, you got to do a minimum here. And I think that's more, you're going to see that's going to put more revenue and more of a sense of winning on the team than capping it. Mike O'Hare, who brought up who respond to the fact that I mentioned how wealthy the Dolans are. Longtime Michael Hare -790. A longtime Cleveland fan, those need to get off their booty tails and spend dollars to bring a title here. It's been proven, place a winning team on the field, the fans will show up. And he mentioned all the consecutive sellouts that Cleveland had over the years. Yeah, I think you're right. Now, more than one person has brought up the fact that a lot of these owners don't spend their own money and they treat it like a business. And first of all, I understand that, but previous listener, I've lost that comment, said that no financial investor says, hey, do you want a good, smart investment? Get a baseball team. A baseball team's like a yacht. You're a wealthy person and you're showing off. Look what I got. I got my yacht. I got my baseball team. It's a symbol of how wealthy and powerful you are. And you want to be front and center to be the hero of this city and throwing your money around. And I'm not going to get political here, but there are a bunch of billionaires out there who seem to be wanting to do some interesting things around the world and to this, how things are going in our country and in the world. Shouldn't baseball be recruiting some of those people to take over some teams and just have fun with this? Here's a fun toy for you to play with. You can throw your money around. You get to be a hero. People love you. You get to play. We need to recruit billionaires to not be megalomaniacal billionaires, but show off how well they can put a team on the field. I got an anonymous writer saying, my question is that Dodgers doing now bad for the Dodgers of the future. Won't this hurt them when they're trying to pay all those prorated contracts? Maybe, but if they win a couple of World Series, who cares? That's kind of the idea, right? If they win a bunch of them, there you go. I mean, it's like, oh wow, what are we going to do? Well, do you know what? You hold your own, and you're glad you had that great run. We come back. There are two more I want to cover because I don't know. They struck a chord with me when I read them. All right, let's go through a couple more of the questions, of the responses here. Oh, Angel Duck fan says, Sully, you keep bringing up people, keep saying the same teams make it every year. Could those people be talking about the playoffs and not the World Series? Well, Angel Duck fan, I feel badly for you because I see where you're coming from. As an Angel fan, it's been a while since your team has gone to the playoffs in any way, shape, or form. But if they're if they're talking about it's the same teams making the playoffs every year, they have even a worse argument. Now, you're an Angel fan, so you've been deprived of October for over a decade now. And if you're a Pirate fan, it's been 9 years since you've seen your team in the postseason. But if you just take the Biden administration, I'm not getting political here, don't worry. But if you just take the Biden years, 21, 22, 23, 24, who failed to make the playoffs? Every AL East team made the playoffs. Cleveland made the playoffs, Detroit, Kansas City made it. So all the AL Central teams made the playoffs. Astros, Mariners. Oh, the Angels and the A's did not make the playoffs during the Biden years. Okay, so you got two. That's 2 out of 15 AL teams. Okay, so there's your 2. In the National League, the Nats, the Reds, the Pirates, and the Rocks. In the 4 years of Joe Biden's administration, out of 30 teams, 24 made the playoffs. 24. And if you went back just 1 year to the COVID year, you can add the A's to that and add the Reds to that. Go 1 year before that, you have the Nationals winning the World Series. If you go back to 2019, okay, you only have 4 teams missing the playoffs. 1 year prior to that, by the way, you had the Rocks. And the longest playoff drought has been the Angels. So, but it's in that 4-year stretch. You only had a handful of teams missing the playoffs. So, by definition, it's not the same teams making it every year. So if that's the hill they're dying on, well, there you go. Well, I have to address this one. This one was actually sent to the Instagram feed. In the arena, who's a good listener, actually, excuse me, I scratched my nose. Wrote a very long one. I had said that the people who are making the comments about the salary cap are carrying the water for the owners. He said, Sully, I condensed it. I'm going to read what he said here. Sully, respectfully, are you the one actually carrying water for the owners? Ooh, fighting words, getting in the fight words. The owners love the current system. The fans admit, and I'm actually gonna read the whole thing here instead of just the abbreviated version right there. The owners love the current system. I'll address that in a second. The fans admit the lower market teams are the only ones getting squeezed. We should be listened to more. My main question is what's wrong with both the cap and the floor? I think a floor would my main issue is I think a floor would make it much easier to put a competitive team on the field and not tank the team. He says you dismiss the parity issue, but it's quite a hill to climb and you're not a big market team. Everything needs to come together. That's true. That is true. But then you have the great equalizer, which is the expanded playoffs, which allows more teams to get in, makes it so unless you're truly terrible, making a run at it is a smart thing to do, as the Braves and the Mets had losing records pretty late into some of their seasons and went on to go deep to the playoffs. Parity is issued, of course, in the NFL. A good QB can affect things drastically. Okay, I don't know enough about football. Maybe you are making a good point here. But I will say this, and I'll do what? I'll bring up the abbreviated version here. The owners love the current system. BS. Total BS. Sorry, in the arena, you're a good fan, but I couldn't let that slide. The owners love the current system? The owners would love nothing more than a hard cap. The owners keep getting their asses handed to them every time there is a player's strike or a work stoppage, mainly because every time first of all, the Players Association is a strong union. Secondly, they've won big time in the past, almost everything. And the owners have done stupid things like trying to collude. But also, the owners don't want the current system. The owners want a hard cap. And the owners keep crying poverty. Oh, teams are going to fold. Teams are going to do this. Teams are going to do that. Okay, show us the books. Oh, the books. Oh, books. I have a post-it note here that says we're losing money. Will that count? We're losing money and we're going to expand. We're losing money, but making record revenue streams we've never seen before. No, the owners don't love the current system. They want the hardest cappity cap you've ever seen in your life. They would love to get rid of free agency altogether. I bet they would go back to going to the reserve clause, which, by the way, borderline made it impossible for small market teams to contend. So no, not buying that one bit. You're a good fan in the arena. You made some good points. Not that part. The owners would love to blow it up, make a hard cap, and punish players. I mean, the players who get punished are not the superstars. They'll always pay the superstars. It's the players who are under team control. And if you're in the middle, you get squeezed out all the time. If you're not a legit superstar, they're like, we'll get a young kid to do it anyway. And the carrying the water for the owners is always referring to contracts that are in the owner's favor as a good contract. Always patting the back of the team saying, hey, they contended with a small payroll, and belittling, well, the Dodgers just bought this or bought that, or the Yankees have bought this or bought that, or the Phillies bought this or whatever. That's carrying the water for them, because that's what they want to do. They want all this revenue stream. They all want to be John Fisher, bringing in the revenue, pocketing it, making the team as small budget as possible, and sitting on a big Scrooge McDuck pile of money, or the was it the storage unit in Breaking Bad where all the dollar bills were all laid in, and Bill Burr and the other dude were laying on doing the little snow angels on it. That's what they want. But it won't happen because there'll always be a few owners who actually do spend their money, who do treat it like a yacht, and have too much fun doing it. All right. I'm feeling a little better now. Thanks for asking. Hopefully, we're going to have some interesting news coming up. But for now, follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram, but leave your comments here on YouTube. Talking about a smart move the Cubs made, the Astros still going for it, and answering your questions. This has been Locked On MLB. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.